Okay, so it's been a while since we've been on Zoom. At least, let me rephrase that. Since I've been on Zoom, so it's nice to see everyone. Nice to get together for a share. So all this really started, obviously, when we think about these times, when we're thinking about what's going on in the world and the war and everything. So Amalek does come to mind, and specifically, given the political climate and the International Court of Justice, which I'm sure we're all aware that they employed this phrase of Timcha Zecher Amalek, right? The phrase was employed to basically give a case against Eretz Yisrael, give a case against the IDF that there was a genocidal intent. So obviously, when we understand, if we look more into the sugya, if we look more, um, thank you, injustice. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you, Menashe. If we look more into the sugya, so we'll understand a lot more about what it does mean to destroy Amalek. But even without going into that, we obviously understand that that's a gross, inaccurate understanding of what it means, and certainly within this context. And what's more is actually, if you look up about Hague and you look up about the general area, there's a Holocaust monument in that place. Specifically says the phrase "Timcha Zecher Amalek," which obviously that's the real reference to it. Towards our oppressors, to those who have tried to destroy us. Now, I won't be talking about tonight about there is such an opinion out there that when it comes to Amalek, it was Russell Bachik cited in the name of his family, his previous family. I saw in the Mayam Loes, the Likute Mayam Loes, and it's brought down that there's such a concept that even though Amalek doesn't exist today because everyone's been mixed amongst all the nations and the like, even so, anyone who rises up against us to destroy us, so they retain or they take on the name of Amalek, and they have all the laws that would apply to Amalek. Now, the truth is that on a halakhic sense, it's very difficult to be able to actually apply that. It's difficult for many reasons. Rabbi Shalom Karmi from YU, so he actually has a fantastic article on this, and he basically explains that it's hard to employ such a concept practically. One, we don't really see many of the poskim in the past generations say such a thing, so it's a novel idea. And what's more is, even if we're going to say such a thing, that Amalek, that we are going to charge a nation or those who rise up against us to destroy us in totality, that we're going to charge them with the name of Amalek, so then it should really follow through that once they're called Amalek, so then for all future generations that they retain that name, just like Amalek retains that name, even if we can't identify who is Amalek now today. So that's just to be able to give some context to this idea that while we do have the charge to go out to recall what Amalek did to us and to destroy Amalek, it's not going to be a charge that we physically follow through, and it's not going to be manifest in a physical way within the times we live in. But what it does mean is there's a spiritual entity to it. There's a spiritual aspect. There's a way in which we live our lives and the way in which we have to relate to the rest of the world, relate to the modern world. And that is something that Amalek stands for. And that is something, at least the nature of Amalek, that's the nature of Amalek that we'll speak to tonight. So if we look back in Parshas Beshalach, so we see there our first exposure really to Amalek. Now it's true he comes before we see the concept, the name of Amalek, because Amalek is within the family of Esav. But the first time we really learn about what Amalek really is and what they've done is in Parshas Beshalach. So let's read through the psukim. We'll read it and we'll have a lot of questions. So the pasuk starts off, "V'yavo Amalek v'ilachem im Yisrael b'Refidim." So Amalek came along and he starts waging war against us in Refidim. V'yomer Moshe el Yoshua b'char lanu anashim b'tzei hilachem ba'Amalek machar. Machar anochi nitzav al rosh hagiba umatei elokim biadi. He says, "Go out and fight, and tomorrow I'm going to station myself there. I'm going to be there, and we'll wage war." So Yoshua does what he's supposed to do, and as the story goes, as the Torah tells us, so he goes out there, and Aaron V'chor on his sides. And ultimately, every time he would raise his hands, so Klal Yisrael would be successful, and every time his hands would begin to fall, Klal Yisrael would begin losing. And so Hor and Aaron hold up his hands. And ultimately, through this entire episode, we obviously were successful, and we fight off Amalek. And in Pasuk Yud Daled, Hashem tells us, "V'yomer Hashem Moshe Ksov zo sikarim b'sefer v'sim ba'azne Yoshua kimacho emcha ezecher Amalek mitachas hashamayim." He says, "Give this over to Yoshua and know that I'm going to completely erase the memory of Amalek. I'm going to completely get rid of them. V'yiva Moshe mizbech v'yikra Shema Hashem nisi, and Moshe builds a mizbech, builds an altar. V'yomer ki yad al keska milchama la'Hashem ba'Amalek midor v'dor. And he says this fascinating phrase, which we're going to come back to many times. And he says ki yad al keska, because Amalek's hand, so to say, is on the throne of God, and therefore there's going to be a war with Amalek for all generations. Hashem will have a war with him. So the way you look at this pasuk, if you look at it, case and ka are both missing letters from them. Case is really kisei, the throne of Hashem, and it's missing the aleph. And ka is the name of Yud Ke Vav Ke, but it's missing the Vav Ke. It's missing the latter half of the latter half of Shem Hashem. So before we even go any farther, first of all, it's a fascinating thing that manifests within this actual pasuk. Somehow Amalek has their hand blocking or obscuring some aspect of Hashem from us, given that there are parts of Hashem's name and parts of this word of the Kisei HaKavod, of the heavenly throne, missing. And what's more is we're looking at a milchama here. We're looking at a war. And we're looking at Klal Yisrael just having left Mitzrayim, just having come out of Egypt with nisim and niflos, huge miracles, huge things happening. And so all of a sudden, Amalek attacks us when we're down and out, when we're weak, perhaps. We have to go wage war. Nisim and Niflos just happened. Makos happened. Yam Suf just happened. Hashem couldn't just come along and create some big nace, some big miracle, wipe Amalek out, destroy them, get rid of them, and that's it. And we keep walking on our way to Eretz Yisrael. So why does it have to be a physical war? Why all of a sudden do the miracles, do the large miracles, at least the overt miracles, stop right now? That's really when we're just looking at the progression of coming out of Mitzrayim. That's certainly something we have to think about. But the second thing is why now? Why does Amalek attack us now at this point that we're leaving Mitzrayim? Specifically now, right then. If you look in Parshas Kisei, so over there's another reference, another part to Amalek, and we're told in source 2, Zachora es asher asa lecha Amalek, v'derech v'seischem Mitzrayim. So remember what Amalek did to you after you left Mitzrayim. Baderech, a focus baderech, on the road. Asher karcha baderech, that he came upon you baderech, again, on the road. And he hit the nechashalim, he hit all those who were weak behind you. V'ata ayef ageya, and you were weak and tired, below yorei elokim, and Amalek didn't fear God. V'haya b'haniach Hashem elokecha alecha mikol eidecha misaviv ba'aretz, asher Hashem elokecha nelsimecha, nachal al-rishta, and ultimately, because of all this, Hashem is going to bring you to Eretz Yisrael, and you'll be safe. But ultimately, you're going to have to do one thing, and you're going to have to destroy Amalek. You're going to have to get rid of Amalek. Amalek cannot exist, and this is the charge. And the Rambam brings it down in Hilchos Malachim, in the laws over there in Perek Hey, Halacha Hey. That ultimately, this is the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to get rid of Amalek, and they can no longer exist. Now, someone asked me recently, so how does that work? If the mitzvah is always remember Amalek, always remember what they did to you, and yet then we're told, Timcha Zecha Amalek, get rid of all memory of Amalek. So how does that work? So the Mefarshim explain what it means is that to remember Amalek is to remember the emotion of what we have to feel towards Amalek. It's to remember what they did, remember what they stand for. And when a person is moved to feel that way, when a person reminds themselves of what they stand for, which in Eretz Hashem we'll talk about tonight, so then they'll be moved to pick themselves up and fulfill the commandment of Hashem, to fulfill the Timcha Zecher Amalek, to fulfill the destruction, to remove such an ideology, remove such a person and a nation from this world. And so that's how that's how the remembering and then the blotting out, the erasing, how they function together. But again, why did this have to happen now? Why didn't Hashem just bring us some big miracle, wipe out Amalek? We don't have to deal with it ever again. Certainly, as he just did to Mitzrayim. And why is it happening now? What exactly does Amalek stand for? So, if we just go back a little, so we can understand that the nature of why they're attacking now and where they're attacking tells us a lot. The fact that they're attacking Baderech, on the road, the fact that they're attacking a weak nation that doesn't really have much to show for ourselves right now, tells you a lot about Amalek. The Malbim says in source 3 that there are many things that other nations will wage war against nations for. There are many reasons one nation might go against the other. And he lists, now I cut them out, but one of the reasons obviously would be a land grab. One of them would be for resources, for power, for politics. All these would be valid reasons why one nation might fight against another. And every single one of these reasons was lacking when it came to Amalek attacking Klal Yisrael. There was not a single reason that would be the standard reason to wage war against another nation here. Not a single one. And because of that, the Malbim says in the middle of source 3, so, or the second line down, V'rak hasiba hatzmias l'melchama zu haisa. You know what the reason for Amalek's attacking us was? It was mitzad hakfira be'elokim. It was a total rejection of God, at least a rejection of God's hashgacha, of his involvement within this world. And when Amalek saw that the rest of the world was shaken, was moved by God, by God's involvement within this world, so Amalek comes along and says, nah, please, it's not all that exciting. God's not all that great. God might exist, but he's up there. He's not going to do much more for Klal Yisrael. But comes along Amalek to cool things down, to be able to show the rest of the world that you think Hashem's going to get further involved in Klal Yisrael's life, and you think Klal Yisrael is going to be successful because of that? Nah, don't worry. It's not going to be that way. And so Amalek comes along to be able to prove, to be able to make that point. And the second aspect is Natar Eva al Yisrael mitzad avosav. Amalek had a deep-rooted hatred for Klal Yisrael. Amalek comes from Esav. Amalek comes from Esav, Eliphaz, and then Amalek. And there's a deep-rooted tension between our nation and Amalek, where Amalek looks at us, and we call Amalek the Rashis Hagoyim. We call Amalek the head of the nations. Bilam calls him such a thing in the Midbar. And we are the Rashis. The Rashis were the first of all nations. Hashem created the world because of Klal Yisrael. And so you put these two Rashis, you put these two heads against each other, and Amalek wants to bring us down. Amalek can't fathom that we're above him. Amalek can't fathom that we have the Bechorah, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls it the Ni Bechorah Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us that you're my Bechorah Yisrael. That's what he tells Moshe to tell Paro. Hashem says, Klal Yisrael is my Bechor. Klal Yisrael is my oldest. And where do we get the Bechor from? Where does such a concept already come from? All the way back with Esav and Yaakov. So not only did Amalek see this as an opportunity to wage war against an awareness of Hashem within this world, but he saw it as an opportunity to finally go up against us, Klal Yisrael, that his family had been harboring for so many years. So Rav Hirsch takes this first aspect a little further. When we talk about this idea that Amalek can't deal with someone above them, Amalek can't deal with the fact that we're above them. So Rav Hirsch explains in source 4 that Amalek hu Yorsha umagshima osa hashkafa sechayim haroa bekoach hashilton eskana hamida hayechidi ligdulosam uchvodam shel bnei adam. That Amalek expression of this concept within this world that looks at power, looks at rulership as the one way to measure a person's success, their value, and everything that they have within this world. And so therefore they can't deal with when there's people admiring another ruler or another aspect within this world. They take that as a personal affront. So Amalek says there can't be someone else. There can't be another being. There can't be a deity. There can't be a God running this world. And there can't be a nation exposing the world to such an idea. Amalek says there's no way because it's a personal affront to Amalek. Amalek's ideology is that we're on top, we're in control, we're in charge, and God is not here. God is not running this world. And any sense that God is running this world, any sense of an admiration for that, any sense of a nation who upholds such a concept, Amalek can't deal with that. It's a personal affront to Amalek's very ideology. It's a personal affront to Amalek's very existence. So that's how Rav Hirsch puts it. And what that means is that when you have a nation coming out of Mitzrayim, when you have a nation forming, when Klal Yisrael is being formed into the Bechor, into the Rashis, into that top nation that's going to bring Hashem's presence into this world, that's going to teach a world what it means to have values, what it means to have Torah mitzvos, what it means to have a God. So Amalek can't deal with that. And this is the formation of Klal Yisrael. You see, it's Mitzrayim. We're coming out of Mitzrayim. And that's the beginning of a formation of a nation, formation of Klal Yisrael together. And when Amalek sees this, besides for the deep-rooted sense of they can't be on top, we have to be on top. Besides for that, they see a nation forming that's going to bring the mission of God, the mission of Hashem into this world and bring Hashem into this world. And at that point, as that nation forms to be able to bring that, so they attack because they said such a thing is untenable. Such a thing cannot be within this world. That's the ideology. That's at least one aspect of the ideology of Amalek. So it's interesting. So it's not just a hashkafic perspective. It actually plays itself out in halacha. There's a discussion if Amalek can be Megayer. There's a question if Amalek can convert into Klal Yisrael. So you go back and forth on the Rambam. Avnei Nezer discusses this, but the Tzitz Eliezer in source 5, he brings down a huge discussion of can Amalek convert into Klal Yisrael, and he goes back and forth for Waldenberg, and he brings some interesting proofs in Mechilta and a Gemara also. We know the Gemara says that Bnei Haman learned in Bnei Brak, where we learned the Haggadah even that the great grandchildren that the future of Haman that they learned in Bnei Brak, they were Jews. So wait a second, how did the children of Haman become Jews? I thought Haman is Amalek. If Amalek can't convert into Klal Yisrael, so how could he have great grandchildren learning in Bnei Brak? How could such a thing be? So he says, so it must be that you can convert into, it must be even Amalek can convert into Klal Yisrael. The truth is, they say that it's probably not, as in Lechatchila we can't take, but once it happened, and then they found out that they were Bnei Haman, that they were descendants of Haman, so once it happens, and it works, it's fine. But ultimately, within that larger discussion, Rav Waldenberg says as follows, that the nature of Amalek, and he's quoting the Avnei Nezer, and the Avnei Nezer has an opinion that they can't convert, and he says, Hinei shezeu shoresh in source 5, Chet Amalek she'eno rotza b'shum ofen liyos nichna liyisrael. He says, you know what the biggest issue of Amalek is? Amalek cannot fathom subjecting themselves and placing themselves beneath Klal Yisrael. They can't imagine that. The Alkain af shemisgayer ein ze od hochacha sherotza b'hachna. Just because they convert doesn't mean that they truly want to live with our rules and want to live with us on top. It might be that they did it for whatever other reasons, but it's not a full expression that they're really coming into a nation that they're willing to say, okay, that nation is in charge, and that nation is great, and that nation has a mission to bring God into this world, which is larger than me, this individual Amaleki. So because of that, the Tzitz Eliezer says it can't be that we would accept Amaleki into Klal Yisrael, because the nature of Amalek on the hashkafic level, and we see it played out on a halachic level, is they have to be on top, they have to be in control. God in control? No, thank you. Klal Yisrael bringing such a message into this world? No, can't be. So we see a hashkafic and a halachic way that it plays out. So now, as we said before, though, it's not just their ideology that they need to be on top, but it goes back into the family. It goes back into family history. So I actually saw this, the Bali Tosfos al the Torah, not the Dasikanim. It's a sefer that just brings down different ones of the Tosfos, their commentary on the Torah, Alika, the collection of them. So it goes back to when Esav sent Eliphaz. He sent him to go kill Yaakov, right? Yaakov's running away from Esav after Yaakov takes the Bechor. And we know that between Yaakov and Esav, the reason Yaakov was able to take the Bechor and purchase the Bechor is because Esav says, what do I need it? I'm going to die anyway. And Chazal teach us, and we understand from the conversation between Yaakov and Esav, that Esav looked at this world and the next world as totally separate. And he said, what do I need that for in this world? There's nothing the two have nothing to do with each other. And he said, I don't want that higher responsibility. And so he sold it. But Yaakov takes it. Yaakov takes the Bechor because, of course, Yaakov believes in a fusion of above and below. He believes in a fusion of this world and the next world, of godliness, of physicality together. He believes in that fusion. He believes in godliness within this world. And so Yaakov takes it. So Yaakov runs for safety, to save his life. And Esav sends, says the Medrash, says the Bali Tosfos, sends his son after him to kill him. And of course, as the story goes, that Yaakov convinces Eliphaz not to kill him. He convinces him just to rob him of all his money, and a person who's completely poor and impoverished is as if he's dead, and he leaves him. Now, when Esav hears about this, the story continues. So he can't believe his son didn't do it well. So he goes to Amalek, Esav goes to his grandson and says, listen, your father couldn't get the job done, so I want you to do the job. And in source 6, in the second paragraph, that's what he says, Halach la Amalek ben Eliphaz, Amalek, Shaharig Yaakov, you should go kill Yaakov. Yisratza Amalek lidivrei zikno, Esav, v'nishba lo shi'argenim. So Amalek says, yeah, no problem. I'm fine with that. And he swears he'll do it. Now, when his mother heard, though, when Timnah, his grandmother, when she heard what was going on, Kishishama Timnah hadavar hara his hirabo. She said, no, Amalek, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Why? Because if you kill them, you're going to take the place. Meaning, who's going to be the descendants of Abram then? You're going to take the place of Yaakov. And trust me, you don't want the place of Yaakov, because if you kill him now, he's going to have a long gullus. We're already told, our family lore, our family history tells us that Hashem spoke to Abram and said, you're going to be slaves, you're going to be in another land, and you don't want that for yourself. Let Yaakov have that. So Amalek leaves him alone. But the day that slavery is over, the day the servitude is done, the day we leave Mitzrayim, comes along the family of Amalek to say, now it's our turn. Now we don't have to deal with the slavery. Now it's our turn to actually take back what we want. Now it's our turn to be on top. And that's what the Bali Tosfos suggests is exactly why they came now. Why they came, not just because, not just this ideology of Hashem can't be in control, and there was nothing behind it as far as grabbing land, grabbing money, and the like, but it was a family history towards between Esav and Yaakov, and now Amalek and Klal Yisrael saying, listen, you're not going to be the racist. You're not going to be the first. We'll be the first. We'll be in charge. We'll be in control. So that is the way. That's the way he presents it. So now, if we're following this down, let's just follow the history. So we have Esav and Yaakov, and Esav and Yaakov struggle with this, and he sends his children, his grandchildren, to go try to kill him. It doesn't happen. So the next time Esav and Yaakov face off, and in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to see all this play out. We're going to see why this matters so much. This background matters a lot to be able to really understand what's going on between us and Amalek now. So the next time they face off is the Sarshal Esav, the famous fight between Yaakov and the angel of Esav. So we're told in Bereshis, in Perek Lamed Beis, in source 7, V'yivater Yaakov levado, v'yavek ish imo ad alos hashachar. So all of a sudden, Yaakov finds himself alone and he begins to struggle. And he begins to fight with this person or with this angel. And this angel ends up being the Sarshal Esav, the angel of Esav, the manifestation of Esav. The Yar ki lo yacholo, the Yiga b'kaf Yerecho, the Teka kaf Yerech Yaakov, the Avako imo. And so Sarshal Esav saw he couldn't win. So instead, he struck him, he injured him while they were fighting. Yaakov says, let me go. Fine. And he says, I won't go. The Malach says, let me go. And Yaakov says, I won't let you go until you give me a bracha. And at that point, he's given this name of Yisrael. He's given this new name. So we come out of that fight with the Shem Yisrael, with the name that we use now. Now this fight is a fascinating fight for many reasons. But Chazal Darshan, based on this fight, that as they struggle and as they fight, and the Malbim expresses this, so dust fills the air. That's why the language of the Vik, instead of the Yariv, to fight, or whatever language you would use, V'yilachem, that they ward, there's a language of kicking up dust. So why is this language used? So Chazal tell us that they were wrestling so hard and so furiously in the ground or on the ground, they kicked up dust all the way to the Kisei HaKavod, all the way to the heavens. That's how much dust there was. But the imagery is really striking when you think about it, because what we're saying is they were kicking up dust until the sky. Why does it say until the Kisei HaKavod? Why until the Kisei HaKavod? Because what it means is that if there's dust, if the air is polluted with dust, so then as if to say that there was a lack of clarity, and all of a sudden, all that clarity that Yaakov might have in his life, and all that connection that he might have in his life to the Kisei HaKavod, to Hashem, to Ruchnias, to spirituality, the fusing of spirituality into his physical world. So all of a sudden that was obscured. The Kisei HaKavod, Hashem, is obscured during this fight. Because during a struggle, so a person can often have questions. During a struggle, it can be hard. And it was no less by Yaakov. So during this fight, we're told with this imagery that the dust floated all the way to the Kisei HaKavod, as if to say it was blocking the Kisei HaKavod, almost like blocking the sun, blocking the clarity of life from Yaakov in that moment. But ultimately, he comes out on top. And what does it end? What do we end with that episode? Yizrach lo Hashemesh, that the sun shines again, the dust clears, and the clarity comes again. But what's fascinating and what I found extremely moving through this was that Amalek, yet again, the family of Amalek, Asa, Eliphaz, Amalek, going down to Amalek today, try so hard to create the separation between us and Hashem. Try so hard to say that you are not going to bring Hashem down into this world. You are not going to help there be a manifestation of Hashem's godliness in this world. And all clarity that you thought you had, all safety that you thought you had coming out of Mitzrayim, that Hashem will help you, I'm going to cut that off. And that's the imagery of having the dust in the air between Yaakov down here and the Kisei HaKavod, between Hashem, the lack of clarity, trying to create a disconnect between the two. And that's also what we're told, that Yad al Kes Ka. Where is Amalek's hand? Kisei HaKavod, on the Kisei. What does that mean? What does it mean Amalek's hand is up there blocking? So the Netziv says in source 10 something beautiful, the second to last sentence. Amalek rotza lahafrid hashkachaso yisbarach mehabriya. Amalek wants to separate, separate between Hashem and his involvement within this world, at least to make it seem like Hashem's involvement is not true within this world. It's as if someone blocking the eyes of a king, saying, "Nah, don't look at your kingdom, don't look at your people." And in this case, it's Amalek putting his hand, so to say, or himself between us and Hashem, saying, "Hashem's not involved in this world, not as much as you think," and turning to us and saying that. And therefore, with his hand, so to say, he blocks, he creates a separation between us and God. And that is that's the other aspect, this other aspect of Amalek, that not only does he say that I need to be on top because there's nothing else on top, but Amalek says something more. Amalek says, you think God's in control? You think God is involved within this world? No. If there's a God, and there is, he's above, he's up there, but that he inserts himself down here as an involved? No, not at all. What's here is rulers. What's here is government. What is here is a person. And Amalek says, and we are those rulers. We are those great ones. And anything greater than that is not here. So they place their hand above as if to say, don't look higher. There's nothing there. There's no connection. We're going to create a period. We're going to create a separation in the minds of Klal Yisrael between them and Hashem, as if to say, don't worry, Hashem's not taking care of you. There's nothing here. Right? And of course, that's what Haman, that's what all our enemies have always tried to do. Create that separation, saying you're in this physical world. You're here. God doesn't care about you. That's what Haman says about us. Haman says Lashon Hara to Achashverosh about us. He says it's an mefuzar, mefurad. It's a spread out nation, and it's a nation who's not keeping Torah mitzvos. It's a nation whose God no longer cares about them. And that's the separation that Haman doesn't just try to propose to Achashverosh, but it's a separation he himself tries to go after. It's a separation he tries to create between us and Hashem, and specifically within our own minds and our own hearts, to be able to tell Klal Yisrael, tell a Jew, Hashem's not involved. Hashem doesn't care. And that's how Amalek tries to come after us. So there's a parak of Tehillim that many of us have probably been saying throughout this period of time of war in Klal Yisrael. And Tehillim parak Pei Gimel 83. And there's a striking pasuk there. Amru l'chu v'nachidei migoy lo yezacher shein Yisrael od. You know what the other nations say about us? We say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, look what the other nations are saying. They're saying, let us wipe out Klal Yisrael. V'lo yizacher shein Yisrael od. And Yisrael's name won't be mentioned anymore. And they come together and they've made an alliance against you, Hashem. So first, the nations come after the Shem Yisrael. First, they come after us because the name Yisrael is the name that we're given, the name that we are as a nation. And with that name, we bring godliness into this world. With that name, we stand as a nation with values, with Torah mitzvos, that we want to be able to show the world that God's involved. God's here. Yashar Kel. There's a straight, direct line. Yashar Kel. There's a straight, direct line between us and God in this world. And the other nations, they say, we want to get rid of that name. We want to get rid of any sense of that name, any sense of that connection between Hashem and this world. And that's what they say next. It's not just against Klal Yisrael. It's not just against Klal Yisrael as a whole, but Kinoatsu Lev Yachtav Alecha Brisi Yichrosu. It's against you, God. It's not just against the physical entity, the Jewish body, the Jews within this world. It's a broader war. It's a greater war. It's a war against God. That's the war Amalek wages as soon as we come out of Mitzrayim. It's not a war for physicality. It's not a war for money, for land, or anything like that. It's a war against God. It's a war against what Klal Yisrael stands for, what we stand for. It's a war against all values, all Torah mitzvos, all sense that Hashem is involved in this world. I think it very much comes down to that pasuk, and what we cry out to Hashem in that pasuk. We say, Hashem, they're not just against us, they're against you. They're going after the very purpose of this world, to be able to bring you into this world. Which is also interesting because Purim, we'll come to in a second. Okay, so now we find it a little bit manifest in actual psukim, but now we can begin to understand. We said, first of all, why now? So now we understand why now. Just as we're being formed as a nation, as we're coming out, we're Baderech, we're on the way, and they want to be able to attack the new formation of a nation that's going to bring God down. But we also were trying to figure out Kiyad al Keska. So they have their hand trying to obscure us, trying to create a separation between us and Hashem. And it's a war against Hashem, and it's a war that Hashem will wage with Amalek forever. So kiyad, their hand, right? This focus on the hand, blocking or on that kisei hakavod. And therefore we're missing the aleph, we're missing Hashem, aleph, the one, and we're missing the latter half of the Shem Hashem of Yod Kei Vav Kei. So what that means is there's a focus on that separation. There's a focus on the hand. And the Nitziv and many others explain. So when we look at the name of Hashem of Yud Kei Vav Kei, so the name of Hashem of Yud Kei Vav Kei is the manifestation of Hashem's kindness within this world. But there's a specific way in which this name breaks up, Yud, Hey, and Vav, Hey. And if you put the two together, Yud and Hey are based on one of the psukim, you could say Yismichu Hashemayim, that the Yud Hey is really Hashem's providence, Hashem's chesed, Hashem's involvement, but more so from a higher level, from Yismichu Hashemayim, from the heavens. And the Vav Hey, the second aspect, the second half of that name is Vav Hey, the Sagil Ha'aretz, which is Hashem's manifestation involvement in this world. So there's always two aspects to Hashem, obviously. Well, again, these are all just ways for us to be able to understand Hashem. Hashem is one. There are no aspects. There's just Hashem. But in a way, for us to be able to understand Hashem's involvement within this world in our lives. So what it means is there's Yud Kei, there's Hashem above, Hashem the great, and then there's Vav He, which is his involvement within this world. So Amalek says, Yud Kei I'll agree to. Yud Kei is above. Yud Kei is God. But he made the world. He did whatever he did, and that's it. But Vav He, that he's involved in this world, that the world should be happy, that the world should think that he's involved within it. No, and therefore Amalek blots out and blocks the Vav He from Hashem's name, and therefore we only have case Ka, just the Yud Kei, because he says Ka, I'll give you. There's a God, but Vav He, that he's involved in this world, absolutely not. And the Kisei, he blocks out the Aleph. He blocks out the Aleph. You know, when you take away the Aleph out of Geula, out of redemption, what are you left with? Gullus. You take the Aleph out. When you take the Aleph out, when you take Hashem out, so that which might be redempted, that which might be a Yeshua, we're left with darkness and gullus. And that's what Amalek tries to sell. Now, specifically through this hand, right? Amalek places, so to say, the hand is on the case ka. So how do we fight that war? What's the imagery of the war that we then fight with Amalek? Hands. The hands of Moshe Rabbeinu stretch out up into the sky, and then we're successful. And when they fall, so we begin to fall. So again, we're fighting. So to say the imagery of the hands with the hands is very striking, and obviously tells us something about these two. Because when the hands are raised, so what does Chazal tell us? Chazal tell us in Gemara Shoshana, in source 13, the chiyad of Moshe osos milchama o shovros milchama. I don't understand. The hands of Moshe wage war. The hands of Moshe do anything? Of course not. El lomer lecha kol zman shahayu Yisrael mistaklin kalape mala u'mishabdim es libam ma'avim shabashamayim hayu miskabrim v'imlav hayu nofim. The whole point was as Moshe Rabbeinu raises his hand, so we look up towards the Kisei HaKavod, we look up towards Shemayim, we look up towards Hashem. And so as much as Amalek says, I will block the Kisei, I will block your awareness of Hashem, I will block any connection you feel like Hashem has with you, so Moshe Rabbeinu's hands combat the hand of Amalek straight up in the air, holding them high, as if to say, and to lift us up, to be able to lift our eyes up towards that kisei, lift our eyes up towards Hashem, to be able to remember, no, Hashem is involved. Hashem is intimately involved. And don't forget that. It's a full kisei, it's a full kisei HaKavod, it's a full Shem Hashem. Hashem is involved. Hashem loves us. Hashem wants to take care of us. And so the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu combat the hands of Amalek, which to block, which to create period and separation. And the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu wish to lift us right back up, lift our hearts and our minds and our eyes right back up to Hashem. So it's very striking that within this whole episode, we find that focus on the kisei and on the hands, because the two hands are fighting each other. And of course, what do we know about Yaakov and Esav? What do we say about Esav? Yadayim Yadei Esav. There's a focus of Esav with the hands. And ultimately, Yaakov takes those hands himself. Yaakov, when he fights for the Bechorah, he goes in to be able to get the Bechorah, so he wears the hands of Esav. So again, we find a lot of focus on hands. Not so much time to go into that aspect of it now, but we definitely see that the imagery is very much comparing the two together. So now, what's also beautiful about this idea of the hands and looking up and fighting against Amalek's wish to say, no, don't look up. There's a disconnect between Hashem there and Hashem's involvement here. There's another very nice thing, and that is that we sing in Shoshanas Yaakov on Purim, Shoshanas Yaakov Sahala v'Samecha Birosam Yachad Tchelas Mordechai. That Klal Yisrael was so happy to see not just Mordechai, and they were so happy to see not just that Mordechai was dressed and Baruch Hashem that he was on top, but they were excited to see the Tchelas Mordechai. Why were they excited to see the Tchelas Mordechai? Why do we say the Tchelas specifically? So I saw this unbelievable interpretation. It was written up in the name of Rav Malkiel Cutler, and he says as follows: that the idea of tchelas, what's the idea of tchelas? The Gemara tells us that when you look at the tchelas, the blue, it reminds you of the sea, and the sea reminds you of the rakia, of the heavens, and that reminds you of the kisei hakavod of Hashem. So why was Klal Yisrael so happy to see the tchelas? Because they saw the tchelas, and slowly, through increasingly bigger picture, all of a sudden they're looking at the Kisei HaKavod, they're looking at Hashem, like Moshe Rabbeinu's hands raised to the heavens to be able to remind us, look at Hashem, He's involved. So the whole Purim story, where it seems like there's a period, and Haman and Amalek want to convince us that there's a disconnect, Hashem's not involved. So the whole point of Mordechai was to show, no, Hashem is involved in our lives, is involved in the physical world, even if we're not seeing these big outward miracles, nisim and niflos. Even if not, Hashem is very intimately involved, and that's what the imagery of the tchelas invokes. That's what the imagery of the tchelas pushes upon the Jew, to be able to look towards the kisei hakavod, towards Hashem, just like Moshe Rabbeinu's hands raised, saying, look towards Hashem. Ignore the hand of Haman and Amalek and all those who seek to destroy us, that they try to say there's a disconnect. God doesn't care. Because we know Hashem cares, and we know Hashem's involved. That's also, by the way, the imagery of the hands. What day is Purim? Well, Yerushalayim, outside Yerushalayim, but Purim is Yom Yadalit, 14th. Yad, 14, Yad. Again, the imagery of hands is striking, very much so. So now we have to understand, though, because we can understand now what exactly Amalek's goal is, that they say that there's no involvement of God within this world, and that we're on top, man is on top, man is in control, and anything that speaks to values, anything that speaks to godliness within this world, they strike against, they fight against. And we can also understand what it means to be al-Keska, that they're trying to obscure those aspects of God, at least within the hearts and the minds of the Jewish nation in this world, to obscure it and say Hashem's not involved. And so we understand why Amalek fought us then and what Amalek is trying to accomplish. But we still have to understand, though, as we started off, why wouldn't Hashem just do one nice big miracle? We left Mitzrayim with miracles, and the entire Exodus, and the entire Yetzias Mitzrayim was with miracles. And all of a sudden they stop, wipe out Amalek, just do it, be done with it, get rid of Amalek. The answer is, and the Chabad brings this down, the answer is is that if Hashem did that, if Hashem just did these nisim and niflos outside of nature, something way above us, it wouldn't have proven the point to Amalek that Hashem is intimately involved within nature and our lives, even in a very, so to say, mundane way. We had to wage that war. We had to come with our own two hands, and we had to come within this physical world with physicality and fight a physical world. And in doing so, Hashem would then insert himself and help us win. But when we did that, and it wasn't just through this crazy nace, this crazy big miracle, what that shows and it counters Amalek's claim that Hashem is just Yud Keh. Hashem is just big picture, big nisim and flows. He runs this world, and he created this world, but he's not intimately involved. And so when we fight Amalek in a physical sense, in a physical way, and we're very involved in that way, and then Hashem, without some big nace, Hashem just helps us win. So that itself is a proof, and that itself is a response to Amalek saying, you think Hashem's not involved? Hashem is so involved. Hashem is involved within our physical acts, within our physical world, within everything we're doing. Hashem cares, and he's going to take care of us. And so that itself, the exact way in which we fought Amalek, and the exact way in which Hashem helped us win against Amalek, is a response to Amalek's claim. And that I think, at least is one of the approaches, one of the ways to be able to understand why it was a physical milchama. Because again, it's infusing those two worlds, infusing the Shomrai and Ba'aretz, infusing the Ruchni and the Gashmi, infusing the spiritual and the physical into one way of life, into one world. Because we don't just live here and say God's there, but everything that we do and everything that we're involved in, we understand Hashem helps with and Hashem is involved with. And so that fusion of having a physical war with Moshe Rabbeinu's hands raised to be able to remind us that even with all the physicality that we're involved with, Hashem is infusing his presence into it, Hashem is involved with it, that itself is a response to everything Amalek was coming to fight against. And that's why it's a war. That's why it's not just some big nace done and that's it. But it's a war that infuses both the physical and the spiritual to lead us to success. So that was a response and is a response to Amalek. So if we go down that route, and that's the claim of Amalek against us. So what that means is nowadays, even if we aren't going to claim that there's a physical Amalek that we can identify, because we can't identify after Sencheriv mixed up all the nations and mixed everyone up, so we can't identify who Amalek is. And so to be able to claim that this person is Amalek or this nation is Amalek, we don't say that. We might not say it on a halachic level, but it remains true nonetheless that whatever Amalek came to be able to destroy, that they continue to try to destroy within this world, at least spiritually. And any nation and any world view that goes against a value system that we hold true, that goes against the value system that we believe that Hashem is involved in this world, that there's Torah mitzvos, that there are such things as values. So that itself we fight against, that itself we push against. And any claim that there is out there that Hashem is not involved within our physical world, any claim that Hashem is not involved within our physical war that Rahman Salam we find ourselves in now, so that's a claim that we fight against, because that itself is a claim of Amalek. That itself is a claim that runs completely counter to what we believe in, to what Klal Yisrael believes in, to what Hashem wants the world to believe in. And that's what we fight against, the value system. And that's what we have to push to the rest of the world. We have to push those values, the value of life, the value of spirituality, the value of meaning, of infusing this world, this physical world with ruchnius, with spirituality, with meaning, with godliness, of what it means to be an upstanding human being, what it means to live a life of Torah mitzvos, whether Torah mitzvos or Sheva mitzvos b'nei Noach. That's the message that we carry to the world. That's the message that we have to fight for. So this morning, after looking over all this, after preparing all this, I was really, really excited because I don't know how this happened, but maybe I wasn't focused. I don't know, but I was reading through davening, and I got to the prayer, Yehi Kavod. Every single day we say, Yehi Kavod Hashem le'olam yismach Hashem b'ma'asav, that the glory of Hashem will endure forever, and Hashem will rejoice in his works. Every single day we say this tefillah. Now I want to read this tefillah together now. And it is mind-blowing. I will admit, I didn't see anyone who says this, but I can't shake this idea that this is speaking 100% to this eternal war that we have against Amalek and that Hashem has against Amalek, and what our goals are. So look at this in source 14. It's mind-boggling. Yehi chavod Hashem leolam. So the honor of Hashem, of Yud Kei Vav Kei, that name that we know matters so much, of Hashem's involvement, His chesed, His kindness within this world, it's forever. It should be forever. And we'll skip to the psukim with the bold. Yehi Shem Hashem mevorach me'ata v'yad olam. And the Shem Hashem, the full name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, not just half the name, it should last forever. Forever, l'dor dor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will fight this war against Amalek forever. And until the time comes that Hashem's name is full forever, meaning Hashem's presence is full within this world forever. Mimizrach shemesh amavoel mehulo Shem Hashem. From the rising of the sun to its setting. Again, v'yizrach le'ashemesh, v'Yaakov Avinu. The war that Yaakov has with Esav, the war that Klal Yisrael has with Amalek, for that time of v'yizrach hashemesh, of when the sun will rise. And now, Ram al kol goyim Hashem al shemayim kivodo. Ram al kol goyim Hashem al shemayim kivodo. That Hashem is above all. Hashem is above all nations. Amalek thinks that they're above God. Amalek thinks that they're above everything. Hashem is above Amalek. By the way, it's brought down. Ram is the same gematria as Amalek, because Amalek thinks that they're so Ram, that they're so elevated, that they're so above. So Ram al kol goyim Hashem. No, you know who's the one who's above and elevated above all? Even you, Amalek? Hashem. Hashem shimcha le'olam, Hashem zikrucha l'dor v'dor. Hashem, your name is forever. Hashem, your remembrance is forever. The zechira of Amalek, timcha zechra Amalek will no longer be remembered. Amalek will no longer exist. The zecher, the remembrance of Hashem and what it means to have godliness within this world, that will exist. Hashem b'shamayim, heichin kiso, machus b'chol mashallah. And it's not just Hashem b'shamayim, it's not just Hashem in the heavens, which is Yud Kei, but it's Malchusa B'chol Mashallah. Hashem is everywhere, in all domains. Hashem is here within this physical world. So whatever you might have thought, Amalek, that you're above, Hashem's above you. And you might have thought, and other nations might think, that Hashem is just above and not below. No, Hashem is truly here. And then a key line, Yismichu Hashemayim v'sagel ha'aretz. That the heavens rejoice, v'sagel ha'aretz, and the earth is happy. This pasuk right here is a famous pasuk when it comes to the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yismichu Hashemayim v'sagel ha'aretz. The first letter of each of those words spells Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yismichu Hashemayim is the aspect of Hashem above, elevated. V'sagel ha'aretz is the Vav and the Hey. That Hashem is also in this world, in the Aretz, in this land. And what did Amalek try to block with their hand? The Vav Hey. Amalek tries to block that and say, no, not involved. And if we keep going, there should have been a pasuk about kisei. We skipped Hashem b'shamayim heichin kiso. Again, not just that Hashem's malchus and his kingship, but kiso and his kisei, his throne, and it's full with a full aleph. And then at the end, ki bachar Hashem b'tzion iva l'moshav lo, ki lo yitosh Hashem amo v'nachalaso lo yazov. Again, Hashem chose us and will never abandon us. That no matter what another nation says, no matter what Amalek tells us, no matter what a person might feel, no matter what, Hashem never leaves us. Hashem will never abandon us. Hashem chose us to be the nation which carries his values, carries his Torah, carries his presence into this world, and we will always remain so. Ki bachar Hashem b'tzion iva l'moshav lo. Because Hashem chose Zion as a place where he'll dwell. And this word, and we'll end this tefillah with this word, Eva. Eva means a dwelling, a place that he can dwell. But Eva also includes every single letter right there that Amalek tries to blot out. The Aleph of Kisei, the Vav Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Because Hashem chose Sion, Eva. Those letters that Amalek tries to block, the Aleph and the Vav Hey, all signifying Hashem's involvement within this world, L'moshav lo. Hashem wants to dwell there. Hashem wants to be here. Hashem wants to be within our lives. He is involved within our lives. And it's just up to us to be able to see that. So as you read through this tefillah, this yichavod, you see it's this tefillah talking about the ultimate expression and malchus of Hashem. And it's kisei hakavod, being recognized, being seen, that there's no dust in the air, that there's no hand blocking Hashem's involvement or blocking our awareness of Hashem's involvement. Hashem is clearly here, and his kisei is full, and his Yud Kei Vav Kei is full, and he is presently involved within our lives, fully present within our lives. So it just blew me away to be able to read this tefillah and to be able to look at this and realize that almost every single sentence is a hint, is connected somehow to this eternal discussion, this eternal war that we're waging against Amalek? I don't know. If anyone ever sees anyone who talks about this in that sense, it would excite me to no end. Okay, so that's I think one way certainly to be able to read this tefillah. I think it really takes everything we said and just puts it into one. What it means is every single morning when we're davening, it's first of all it's a very holy tefillah. We're told to have a lot of focus, a lot of kavanah during this tefillah. But another kavanah, one focus could just be that as I read this, so I'm davening that Hashem's presence be manifest in my life. That I'd be able to see Hashem. I'd be able to see Hashem in everything within this world, and strengthen myself. That even at those times that I feel like, does Hashem really care? Is Hashem really involved? To strengthen ourselves to realize, yes, the answer is Hashem is Kibachar Hashem Etzion. Eva Lamoshavlo. Hashem chose us. He'll never abandon us. He'll never leave us. He's always with us. He's always involved in this world and intimately within our lives. That's that tefillah, and I think that really just pulls together everything. So I'll just end in these last 2 minutes now. And of course, if there are questions, we can talk at the end. But there's a halacha. There's a halacha that if a person erases on Shabbos, you're not chayiv. You're not held liable, at least not a chatas or punishment on Shabbos, unless it's mochek almanas lichtov. It has to be an erasing in order to write in that place, or in order to enable writing. That's the basic halacha when it comes to Shabbos, that generally just erasing itself without intention to do something positive afterwards is nothing. So Rav Kook in Source 15 says something very beautiful. He says, if that's true, if I know that mechika shelo almanas lichto, if just erasing with no intention to build afterwards, with no intention to write afterwards, is just mekalkel, it's destructive. It's not actually a malacha. So then when it comes to mechias Amalek, when it comes to erasing the memory of Amalek from this world, mechika of Amalek, so it can't just be mere erasing, mere destruction, a focus on just getting rid of, but it has to be with the intention to build after that. It has to be with the intention to write after that. So he says, Lachain, after the 3 dots in the middle of this, Lachain mitzvahs mechias Amaleki. You know what the mitzvah of erasing Amalek is? Mechika almanas lichtov. It's an erasing in order to write. Almanas letakin olam b'malchus shakai. In order to fix this world. If the erasing comes along as a destructive act, so it's nothing. But if the erasing comes along to make room for Shem Hashem, to make room for Hashem within this world, to make room to rebuild this world in a better way with better values and better systems, so then that's a real mechika. Then I'm fulfilling Hashem's charge, Hashem's commandment to tell us to erase Amalek. Mechika shabimkoma tibuana osios kodesh shel shem male v'kisei male. And again, if my whole intention by the mechika, by the erasing, by getting rid of such a nation, by getting rid of such an ideology, is not just destructive, but it's there in order that I should bring Hashem into this world to write the Shemos of Hashem, a full kisei, a full throne, a full Shem Hashem of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So then that's a fulfillment of the mitzvah. V'rak keshehamochin hamochkin megiam ligmar hamalacha shel ksiva hatikon az miskayanas hamitzvah b'shlimusa. Then I fulfilled the mitzvah in its totality and its best way and its completeness. Hashem shalem v'akisei shalem u'malchuso b'chol mashallah. And then Hashem's name is shalem, his kisei is shalem, his name is complete, his throne is complete, and his malchus and his kingship b'chol mashallah. His kingship is everywhere, within this world and above, within our lives and every aspect of this world. And that's the goal. That's the goal of combating Amalek. That's the goal of combating such an ideology, such a nation. Not just to destroy, not just to get rid of, but to build, to be able to create something better, to be able to fulfill our purpose within this world, to be able to bring Hashem within our lives and the lives of others, and an awareness to the general world that Hashem's involved. And it's not lost on me that he ends off, Umachuso b'chol mashallah, which again is that exact line which we were looking at when we were looking at the tefillah of Yehi Chavod. So I would venture to say that the two are very much linked. That it's very much a message and an aspect of that tefillah that we say every single day. But those are the messages. Those are the things that we're trying to pull out from a war against Amalek, and it's Hashem will come to a day that we'll be able to fulfill this in a proper sense, and Hashem will wage that war, And it'll mean that Hashem is fully present within this world and all the things that we find so hard and all the struggles that we're looking at within this world. So there'll be less of questions, and the entire world will be able to look at us and be able to say, so we want your values, we want your Torah, we want the positivity, we want what Klal Yisrael is bringing to the forefront, we want what Klal Yisrael is bringing to this world, because that's what Hashem wants. So thank you all for coming tonight. Thanks for
Thank you
being
so
here,
much.
and
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very
happy to stay
much.
after
Where should
to
go?
discuss.